Saul and Battery, hosted by Mel and Kelly. Forget what you know. Forget what you know. Saul and Battery.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Saul and Battery. I'm Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter. And with me, as always, is Mel.
Hey everybody, I'm Mel at Karmic9 on Twitter, and I love our little theme song.
It's an awesome song. So some boring technical stuff here is that as Mel and I work our way through this and how it'll all work, we thought it would be really cool to put a little introduction playing that theme song with credits and stuff about what episode and all those things. We kind of played with that for our second episode, but the problem is you create a second video then, and there's a bunch of links to this live broadcast, and so decided to say it sounds pretty good when I play it on the little speaker, so we're just going to keep playing on a little speaker and stay with one version. So the link you're at now and the link that's been in everything else will always be the link you can go to relive the awesomeness that is a Saul and Battery. So that's it. I have some housekeeping items. Mike, Official Pagan, Mike was going to join us, and he came up with this lame excuse of a bursted pipe shutting down power in his abode, and sub-zero temperatures, and blah, 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 no power, and so he is unable to join us tonight. But we will certainly have him back. We're going to have Jeans join us next week, but we'll likely get Mike back the week after that, assuming he survives. If he doesn't survive, I did ask him to send an email documenting that I get all of his movie memorabilia, and I'll keep you posted on that. So
I called dibs on that Julian Sands poster.
You got
it. He and his wife both go, which we hope not. That was rather macabre.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we're pulling for you, but if it doesn't work out, we'll get us the stuff. So.
Right.
So before we get kind of rolling on the episode, we want to kind of talk about some suggested Better Call Saul viewing approaches, and obviously watching the show is a key, so we recommend you do that. When you do watch it, and we've mentioned this in previous shows, the AMC Story Sync, do the second screen experience, adds a lot of dimension and fun stuff to it. You're supposed to, at the end of it, depending on your answers, get a question on whether you're a good litigator or not. But you're not having a lot of luck with that, right, Mo?
No, it hasn't worked for me, but it's also not working for me on Story Sync on Walking Dead either, so I don't know. It could be Mel error, but I have no idea.
I don't know, but it definitely adds a lot of neat additional context, so I'd recommend doing Story Sync during Better Call Saul. Then, of course, as soon as you get done watching it, you want to get comfortable and listen to a Saul and Battery. And then, and I had mentioned this about Breaking Bad some time ago, they had an Insiders podcast that Kelly Dixon, one of their editors, ran, and she's doing it now again for Better Call Saul. So you get Kelly Dixon, Vince Gilligan, Peter Gould, Bob Odenkirk's been on a couple, and so you can go to iTunes, Breaking Bad, or your podcast tool of choice, and pull down the Better Call Saul podcast or Insider podcast. And lots of little goodies there for you. So if you're a Better Call Saul fan, I highly recommend you subscribe to that as well.
Yeah. Yep. And just so everyone knows, Myrna believes Mike's story. So.
Oh yeah, and Myrna's it's gonna be special because Myrna is actually, as we understand it, she's actually watching Better Call Saul during this broadcast. So we run shorter than Better Call Saul, so we will move from recap to spoiler pretty quick for you here, Myrna. But thanks for coming along on the ride. In addition, We're going to try a little bit of audience participation or interaction opportunities throughout this show. Use the hashtag #TalkSaul. My assumption is, last I checked on IMDb, they had only titled the first 5 episodes, which were Uno, Mijo, Nacho, the one we're talking about tonight, Hero, and Jello. And so 6
Jello was going to be one of my guesses.
Well, you're going to have to come up with another one. So throughout the show, feel free to tweet out, use that #TalkSaul hashtag if you have a guess on what any of these. You don't have to guess which episode, but do you have any guesses of any of the future titles for 6 through 10? And then throughout the show, I'll pester Mel for another one, and I'll offer up some. And to get the ball rolling, I'm going to throw out Yo-Yo as a possibility. So Yo-Yo's one of mine. Whoever gets the most right will receive a yet to be determined fabulous prize. We'll figure that part out later, but feel free to throw out your guesses on episode names.
Okay.
You want to do your first one now? Or you want to wait till?
I really only have one, so I better save it.
Okay.
I just found out about this contest myself.
Yeah, it was. I could have kind of given you more of a heads up. That's true. But I need
a dictionary real quick.
You might want to think about what Tuco's uncle's name is, or how he refers to his uncle. That might be a good one. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get started with the recap. So the cold opening. No food this time. Instead, we get a Big Ben and an extremely Eisenhower era cell phone gets dropped in there. And we find out that it is Charles McGill, looking much better than as we've seen Chuck recently, coming into visit with someone who's incarcerated. And we all have a pretty good idea who that is. And a very young Jimmy McGill with a luxurious head of hair saunters into the meeting room. And he and Charles exchange the pleasantries and all that. And apparently this is not Jimmy's first run-in. And he wants Charles to do his magic. And there's something about this one might include a sex offender part. Now, I knew he was slipping Jimmy and falling down, but I don't know what the sex offender part of the charge might have been.
I was shocked at that.
Yes. And then, this went by quick. Did he say it was a typical Chicago sunroof? Is that what he said? There was something in there. He was describing whatever the thing was. He said, "Oh, it was a typical Chicago sunroof," or something like that. I couldn't catch it, but I have no idea what a Chicago sunroof is. If that's what he said.
Yeah, I didn't write that part down, so I don't know. I vaguely recall that, but the wording now escapes me.
And John McGavin is throwing shade on the East Coast, saying they're just not as hardy as us Midwestern types. And as far as us losing Mike, so.
Yeah, well, everybody is hardier than me. I'm in Texas.
Yeah, well, and it looks like they got a handful on the East Coast right now, so this would not be a good day to lose power, but
no. Nope.
Hopefully it works out. So Charles about had it, and finally Jimmy appeared contrite and willing enough to follow orders. And the other pieces we get here is this is still when Jimmy's in Cicero in Chicago. He's in Cook County Jail, and Charles has already taken residence up in Albuquerque and had to fly back for this. And it seems also very likely that Jimmy pleaded with his mother to call Charles to get him to come up.
Right.
And that ends the cold open.
I liked at the very end where Jimmy had to ask him to help me, where he said, "Help me." I really liked that part. Yeah. So, going into the first act, we are back in Albuquerque in the present Jimmy McGill era, and he's getting into the cucumber water. And if you watch Story Sync, you find he's making a Jimmy's Cucumber Cooler, which is a slightly alcoholic drink. So he then calls someone and wakes them up, and we find that it's Kim, the girl that works at the other law firm. I'm having a moment.
Hamlin, and McGill.
McGill. Okay. Thank you. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning. He wakes her up. Apparently, he has a tendency to call her up in the middle of the night and ask her to talk dirty to him, which she says she's not going to do. And then she's like, "Oh God, you're not going to talk dirty to me, are you?" And which he doesn't. He says that this is a quality PG phone conversation. So basically,
PG-13 at worst.
so he's also been kind of staring real hard at that matchbook that Nacho wrote his number into. So turns out he's trying to pump Kim for information about the Kettlemans. And she's a good lawyer and isn't really giving very much away. So one of my favorite quotes from, it's not my favorite quote from the episode, but I did like the crack he made about the Donner Party when they talk about good choices. So I liked that one. He says, so did the Donner Party when they took that shortcut.
Yep. That was a leading candidate for my quote of the show until something else happened.
Yeah. So they're going back and forth, and he's kind of implying that the family might be in some sort of danger, which Kim picks up on and then immediately starts pestering him for what does he know, to which case he basically says, "Oh no, I'm drunk," and blows off whatever he was getting ready to say. So they end their phone call, and he tries to go back to sleep, and he can't. He's tossing and turning on his little camp bed in his office. And finally he gets up and goes into the laundry room where he starts unrolling an entire roll of paper towels. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm like, what is he going to use all these paper towels for? But turns out he just wanted the cardboard tube in the center. Kelly, did you have any idea what he was going to make out of that at that point?
So I was a little concerned when it started, and then I started. I'm not unfamiliar with what he eventually created. However, I'm very unfamiliar with apparently his other use for it, which comes a little later. But yes. I was starting to think I think I know what he's going to do there.
Okay, so what he makes is a little homemade device with a cardboard tube and some paper and whatnot, trying to disguise his voice. He drives out to the middle of nowhere to a phone booth, and you're not sure who he's going to call. I know I thought he was going to call Nacho, but it turns out he's calling the Kettlemans. And how do we know this? Because we got the most annoying answering machine ever proclaiming that he had reached Team Kettleman. Now at this point, I have to say I'm absolutely not on Team Kettleman, but he can't quite bring himself to leave a message, so he keeps calling and hanging up, and eventually Mr. Kettleman answers the phone when he tries to then use his voice disguiser, which is not working very well, and they actually cannot understand him. And in the most polite way possible, they're trying to ask him to get a better line and call back later, to which point he stops using his cardboard tube and informs them, "This is a friendly stranger, your family's in danger," and hangs up the phone. And that is my favorite quote from the episode.
This is a friendly stranger, your family's in danger.
Yes.
Excellent.
That's mine.
Which he said through his little kazoo device, I think. I'm not 100% sure. But,
he ended up having to say that afterwards because they couldn't understand him. He tried to say it several times in different ways, but they couldn't understand him with his kazoo.
Yes, and so they and then at the end of this act, they peek outside, and there is someone lurking, apparently. Oh goodness! I've received a text message from one of our listeners who has explained what a Chicago sunroof is, and we're not going to talk about it.
Oh.
We are not going to talk about it. But how can I do this? And he chose not to tweet it. I think that was wise. But so apparently he did say Chicago sunroof, and it involves placing something on the head of an unsuspecting person. Especially a Bears fan, is what this individual says.
Okay.
But it would be a thing you probably wouldn't want somebody you don't know to place on. I don't think you'd want anybody to place on your head. So these are the kind. Thank you, listeners out there, with this encyclopedia knowledge of things like what a Chicago sunroof is. So the more you learn. So, oh my. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to Act 2. I'm going to collect
now that
myself.
Kelly's all flustered.
Yes, I've got to collect myself. And Act 2 is a large act. There's quite a bit that goes on here. And it starts off with where we see Jimmy a lot, which is in the restroom of the courthouse. And he's talking to a captive audience because the guy that he was petty with a prior in the last episode, he's pitching a deal with him. And another good quote there about, because apparently this is not a pleasant conversation from an olfactory nerve. And he said, "What'd you do? Eat the whole roast beef? A whole roast beast."
Beast, yes.
And and then there was also something about straight from Satan's bunghole, which was another nice thing. So apparently this guy's a little smelly, and they're trying to go through, but he's not, they're debating. Saul's talking about one case, and he's talking about another, so they eventually get it worked out. But then Jimmy gets a call, and we'll find out from who in a second, but he needs to get out of the courthouse in a hurry and to a different location. So we all know when Jimmy tries to leave the courthouse, there's a problem, and that problem is Mike.
There's a troll under the bridge.
Wants his stickers, and if he doesn't get his stickers, it wouldn't go too well. So I'm trying to make sure I keep these straight here in terms of because this is the one where he eventually says, "Screw you, geezer," and
yes,
lets himself out.
He owes $9, but he only has $5 on him.
And Mike's not taking it, and he just says you're out of luck, and so Mike returns to his leisure reading. Jimmy buzzes himself out and shouts out, "Screw you, geezer," as he leaves, which
like he's some young punk kid. It was a nice image.
Yes, it was. And so then we get over to the Kettleman's house, and which I would like to call the Kettle House from here on out. And the Kettlemans are missing, Craig and Betsy. Their two kids, JoJo and Warren, are missing. Kim's kind of saying, "You kind of warned me about this. What was this about?" And Jimmy's saying everything will be fine. And he eventually makes his way to the second payphone. So this is interesting, is that a lot of payphones in Albuquerque, more than we saw him in Breaking Bad. We see him here. I guess this is about 6 years back. StorySync kind of pointed out a pretty cool thing, that when we see Saul Goodman have to use a payphone like this, he's got it wrapped in like a rag. He refuses to even touch the phone. But Jimmy has no problem with any kind of issues there. And he starts leaving a series of, I don't know how many messages he ended up leaving with.
I wrote down that he calls Nacho over 100 times. It wasn't quite that bad, y'all, but
it was a lot. And I don't know how so do you lose your, I mean, it almost like he's had $9 worth of change. He could have. He
had to have.
And
do you remember the number he was calling from the payphone's phone number?
I believe it was 146-879-29.
You got it. We only heard him leave that message 100 times in that episode.
Yes,
increasingly desperate messages.
yeah, no rats on this ship, and just doing it. And he was going through, and then he finally gives up. But the phone rings, and there's nobody on the other line, on the other end. So he hangs up, and he's starting to get uncomfortable. Gets in the esteem, and it will not start. And then spying through his rearview mirror, he sees a somewhat intimidating gentleman making his way towards him. He decides to get out of his car. I'm walking. He turns the corner and he takes off at a full sprint. He gets run down by the scary man and the second man, and gets hauled it's getting hauled into jail when they eventually find out that he is actually the lawyer of somebody else who's in jail, which is our good friend Nacho. Nacho's in jail, and he's the calmest looking serial killer. Is Jay Davis has tweeted out a really excellent quote that comes a little deeper here in the show. We'll bring it up, but Jay's got an excellent quote there. One of the best.
Yeah, I wrote that one down too. It's in Act 4 though, people. You gotta wait a minute.
Gotta wait for that quote. Yeah. So Nacho's unhappy, and Jimmy comes in, and his usual delivery way, it's just like, well, it's problematic. And, there's blood on the floor, and they're calling the FBI in, which he explains to Nacho is bad. And then he, a little ray of sunshine, he goes, I think I can get you down to the minimum, which is 18 years. and you can see that Nacho's not probably excited about this.
Yeah, no.
But Jimmy's insistent to say, but they take this good behavior stuff seriously, so we should start that right now. The good behavior thing right now. And all this time, Nacho's not said a word.
Nope.
And so Jimmy says, so would you like to weigh in? and that's when Nacho's view of the world is, I told one person about this plan. It was you. You told somebody else. I got set up. I've been casing it, but I hadn't done anything. And I left, and they got in. And then Jimmy's like, well, what about the blood in your van? And he mentions, well, that's frickin' Frack's blood and whatever you might have left in there, which is good.
Yeah.
Which then comes to my quote, my favorite quote of the show, which is, "You're talking like a person with head trauma," which I thought was a great quote, but an incredibly bad idea to share with.
Yeah.
This is not the guy you suggest might have brain trauma, because he will likely give you head trauma very quickly.
Yes, Nacho is a very cool character, and I'm not sure he blinked in that entire scene. He's scary. He's not somebody you want to mess with. So that takes us into Act 3, which is basically...
Before we go to Act 3, we have to, because Nacho did give Jimmy one piece of advice, or he said basically, you have to get me out of here today.
Oh, yes.
Or you're a dead man, which provides incentive for the next act.
Yes, because we know Jimmy McGill is not the bravest soul in the world. So in Act 3, we started with he's having a big scene with the cops. They're messing with him, trying to pressure him into giving them information that he may know but isn't actually supposed to tell anyone, given that he is Nacho's lawyer. He makes a big scene about fighting with the cops, in fact, pressing his face up against the door that Nacho is behind to make sure that Nacho can hear him, defending him to the police, demanding that he be released, etc. and so forth. Kim is also there, and Jimmy is spinning out his scenario, his other scenarios to the police, telling them that, they need to test the blood in the van, etc. and so forth. They're not really down with that idea because it'll take too long. And he wants to see the house. The cops are no. And then Kim is the one who convinces them that Jimmy should see the Kettleman's house. Now, that was also one of the story sync questions of why would she do that? And I got the right answer. I don't know about you, Kelly. Did you get the right answer?
I did indeed.
Yeah, it wasn't very hard to figure out. She seems like she tries to be a decent person, even though she's a lawyer. And she's basically trying to guilt Jimmy into doing the right thing by showing him the kids' rooms in the Kettleman's house. Now, the Kettleman's house has been ransacked. It's all a mess, like somebody's torn the whole place up. And she takes him through the kids' rooms, where Jimmy notices that the little girl's doll is missing. Everything else is there for the doll, but the doll itself is gone. So he has the brilliant idea that the Kettlemans kidnapped themselves to get away from the police and whoever might be after them, because, of course, Jimmy believes the Kettlemans did embezzle all of this money. And the police aren't really buying that scenario. They've already checked. All of the family vehicles are there. They had finally admitted that they already noticed that the doll was missing. They figured that the bad guys that kidnapped the family let the little girl take her doll to shut her up. But Saul still isn't believing that. And let's see. He has another, he pulls Kim outside because he's trying to convince her to help him. And he finally admits to her that he actually called and warned the Kettlemans. That's why he's sure that they kidnapped themselves, that they're in hiding somewhere, because he warned them that something was going to happen, and so they ran. And this is the part where Kim goes, "Oh no, you didn't use the sex robot voice, did you?" This is apparently the original purpose of the cardboard tube voice disguiser, is to make a patented Jimmy McGill sex robot voice.
Yeah, so Jimmy's an interesting character here in terms of Chicago Sunroofs. Google it, folks. So when they were there, and now he does. Not only does he like to do dirty talk with lady friends, he likes to do it as a sex robot, and he comes up with his own mechanism to get that realistic sex robot voice.
Yes, he does admit that that is probably what scared the crap out of them. It's his sex robot voice. So he basically proceeds to tell Kim that Nacho is going to kill him if he doesn't get him out of jail, and he says that his guys will turn me into a meat pinata. Which I like that, meat pinata.
Yeah, another super strong quote, yeah.
Yes. So he goes running back. He needs to talk to Nacho. He's got to try to convince Nacho, well, first of all, not to kill him. So he is running back to the courthouse, and who does he run into? He needs to park his car, of course. So this is the scene that everyone has seen in the previews, where he and Mike have a throwdown in the entrance to the parking garage because Jimmy doesn't have any money. Mike remembers him running out. He's not going to let him in. So he won't even let him get a ticket to punch into the parking garage because of what he did before. So Jimmy parks his car right in the entrance, blocking the entrance, and thinks he's going to walk away, makes a few jabbed remarks about Mike's age and poop-filled diapers, to which Mike gives him a beatdown.
Yes, indeed he does. Yeah, I think in there somewhere, what do you do, gum me to death?
Yes, that was said.
Ill-advised. And you see the moment when Jimmy realizes that he's miscalculated.
Mm-hmm.
And so we leave there, and then we go into the final act. In the final act, we're back to the police station where the police are concocting the story to say that Jimmy assaulted Mike, which is pretty. There was a finger, and Jimmy pointed out there was a finger, but
yes.
And this is where again they still really want Jimmy to turn Nacho in, and as Jay pointed out and on Twitter, well, another excellent quote for tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Nacho is Nacho Man.
That was a good one. That was my runner-up.
So Mel, before we go any further with this, do you have any O-related, two-syllable O titles? I threw out Yo-Yo. I can throw out another one if you want to.
I'll give you my one that I've got right now.
Okay.
And it's kind of a no-brainer for any Breaking Bad fan. So I say it has pretty good chances of being used at some point, and that's Pollo.
Oh,
Chicken. Pollo.
excellent. Oh, that's good. That is
That's
really
mine.
good.
That's my one and only.
I'm gonna throw out. I'm gonna throw out. See, I wanted to throw out Tuco, but I don't. I don't think we're gonna. I don't think there's gonna be another. I think it's gonna be Nacho. I don't think we're gonna get as much Tuco as Nacho, but I will go with Tio as
Okay.
as a possible one. So we've got Yo-Yo, Pollo, and Tio as possible ones. And again, you folks on Twitter, fabulous unnamed prizes are potentially available if you want to throw out your guess of a two-syllable ending in O title for any of these future episodes 6 through 10. And I could just kind of keep throwing them out and kind of guarantee that I win the prize. It might be official Pagan's movie memorabilia, depending on how things go on the East Coast. So it could be big stuff here, folks, because he's got like a piece of the deck from Friday the 13th. So
He
a piece of
does.
the doc.
That's pretty cool.
But we're pulling for you, Mike. Alrighty, and then he, Saul's or Jimmy's kicked into overdrive here. We got the Nacho Man. And he calls the two police officers, Cagney and Lacey, which I loved, and insists that when he is found to be correct, that they owe him an edible arrangement heavy on the pineapple, which
Yes.
is a wonderful piece of detail from
Mhm.
there. So they're going back and forth on this, and then all of a sudden Mike says, I've decided I'm not going to press charges. And so Jimmy, again, kind of amazingly, it's like he catches these breaks. Tuco lets him go. He goes back and talks to Tuco. Not a good idea. Mike helps him out. The best thing to do at that point would be to just leave. But no, he's got to go after Mike to find out why he helped him out. And he goes, because I know it can't be that you have something resembling a heart and all that. But then Mike starts to give a little bit of his backstory that when he was a cop in Philly, which Jimmy's a little surprised he was a cop in Philly, but gave a story of that there was a bookie, and I know being the big sports person you are, you fondly remember the Steelers Cowboys Super Bowl, Mel. I'm sure that was big.
I do remember that though. I'm not that ignorant, because it was the Cowboys, and it got talked about because of that around me. So yes, I do in fact remember that.
Excellent. Hey, and we got Myrna throwing out Loco as
Yep.
a that's an excellent one, Myrna. We'll put you down for Loco. So so we find out Mike was a Philly cop, and he was saying, I think, Saul's like, you think I'm right, or Jimmy is saying, you think I'm right, and he said, yeah, your story makes sense, and a lot of times people don't run that far; they stay near home.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of a poignant much, and I think we'll probably get a little more. I'm hoping, it'd be very interesting to find out what actually happened in Philly that resulted in Mike no longer being a cop, because that in Breaking Bad there was towards the end of it an interrogation session where Hank mentions, it didn't end so well for you in Philadelphia, things got a little ugly, but we don't really know what happened. But Mike then says, just kind of after he's explaining his reasoning for why he believes what Jimmy is saying, he says, no one wants to leave home.
Yep.
And Mike has left home, so it would be interesting if we get a little more depth to that. And given how these guys write and what they do, I don't think I think we're going to come back to that, which will be great, because I'm very interested to know a little bit more there.
Mhm.
And so Mike has given Jimmy something to think about, and so he heads back to the Kettle House and he looks back at their fine little family stickers on there and notices that there's a tent at the end of showing the little stick figures of the mommy and the daddy and the two little kids in the tent.
Because of course Team Kettleman are campers. Ugh.
And have those stickers on the back of their car.
Yes. Yes.
So some very, very cool music. um, is played as we get to see Jimmy make his way out the back of the kettle house into the desert, and he goes for quite a while.
It
And
gets
he's
dark and everything.
yeah, he goes yeah. I don't know what time but it was very sunny when he started, and he eventually is I think about ready to give up. Sits down by a tree. I'm still shaking Walking Dead stuff. I'm like, careful, Jimmy, there might be a walker around with us.
Yeah.
But no, different show. But what's almost worse than walkers is the Kettlemen singing campfire songs.
Yes.
And there's a rousing rendition of Bingo Was His Name-O going on. And Jimmy follows the sound of the painful voices and sees there is the family unit in a tent singing Bingo Was His Name-O. So he
And
calls.
how does he enter the tent?
First he calls Kim to say, hey, I found your dumbass
Yes.
clients. and then the tent zips down, and he pops his head in a la Jack Nicholson and said, here's Johnny! And totally freaks out the two kids. 'Cause Jimmy's not gifted with dealing with children. It's something that we see later with Saul Goodman continues to carry forward.
You got to say though, there was a little bit of a Nicholson resemblance there when he popped his head in there and did that line. So.
It was pretty awesome. Cool. And we got John McGevna coming in with Pinto as that's a good one. So
yeah.
Pinto, we got Mr. McGevna in with Pinto.
And Myrna got the episode watched before we finished. Wow. Barely.
Nicely done, Myrna. Speed watching. Yeah, and so Betsy's not really ready to leave, doesn't want to go. You can't make me go, and Jimmy's having none of it. It's like you're going, or the cops are dragging you out, and there's a tug of war over a bag.
Yeah.
And the duffel bag eventually rips open.
And guess what?
Guess what? We now know where the money is. It's in the kettle tent, in a duffel bag.
1.6 million hits the floor.
So that's going to be interesting to see what kind of happens next there, because Jimmy now has a key piece of information.
Yes.
But he also needs to tread lightly around Mr. Nacho.
Yep. I'm going to say there are some negotiations that will be going on next episode. It
will be, yeah. I gotta imagine he's gonna probably be on the, I think Nacho's not going to be mad at him, but I don't think it's going to be a warm relationship.
I imagine Nacho's going to be wanting a payoff to not kill him. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. So we start. So a couple characters in this episode start to come out a little bit more. Kim, who we know now learn has had some level of relationship with Jimmy.
She has experience of the sex robot voice, and I am so sorry for her.
Yeah, and she's on his speed dial on his phone, so
yes.
So they're there, and so you start to get her. She seems like a pretty likable character. She seems interesting. And so I think she's going to be kind of fun as we start to kind of learn a little bit more about her. She's very pragmatic in terms of what she can and can't do, and how long she can do different things with before Hamlin will get upset and those types of things. So she seems pretty cool. And of course we start to get a little more Mike, which is great because he is such an awesome character. So we get a little more Mike. That'll be good. And any episode with I don't like them, but the Kettlemans are good TV. It's kind of.
You have to love to hate them. I mean, really.
Yes,
Betsy
indeed.
Kettleman, she is evil. I'm just telling you. I'm telling you all right now. She's evil.
Thinks she's calling the shots, kind of.
I'm thinking she is firmly in charge of that team there. We've had another entry. Jay says Gustavo.
Oh my goodness, that's a good one.
I would imagine at some point. I'm not sure if we're gonna get him, if we're gonna get Gus this season or not.
That
Don't
could
know.
be. I don't know. That could be good, but it was better. It was Tuco versus Gustavo in the house because we wouldn't have had that amazing scene in the desert with Gustavo. He would have
Hmm.
he'd have box cuttered him. He would have taken care
Yeah.
of it all quietly and neatly.
Yep.
Cool. So to recap some of our name predictions we've got here. I've got Yo-Yo and Tio. Mel has Pollo. Myrna Loco. John McGevna Pinto. And Jay Gustavo.
Yep. All excellent.
I will not. I'm going to play one for Mike because I just, in honor of Mike going through there, if he makes it, will be, and I'm going to give Mike uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
And so he could win a fabulous prize too. So we'll do that. So that's pretty
Awesome.
cool. Excellent. Well, this was good. It was fun. It was a fun episode. Not quite the pace of Miho, but it accelerated as things went by. So
I think we're firmly seeing Jimmy McGill getting on that road to Saul Goodman. Slowly and surely, we're seeing all the little bricks falling into place of the path that is going to lead him to being a criminal lawyer.
with a sex robot voice.
Yes, that's so disturbing. So disturbing.
It's just kind of a sad scene to kind of picture Jimmy on the phone with that talking.
In the nail salon. Yes. Doing his sex
yeah.
robot voice. That's just so sad.
Drinking his cucumber cooler. It would be kind of sad.
Yeah, so we got a little glimpse of a little bit more of the relationship between him and Chuck before Chuck went crazy, or whatever's wrong with Chuck. I'm not quite certain. So that was nice to see at the very beginning of the episode, where he had to go to his brother for help. So I guess possibly that's the beginning of Chuck's decline. And we saw that Jimmy had to agree to do whatever he told him to do in order to get him to help him. So we had a lot of development in this episode between characters, a lot of character development going on.
Yeah, what I'd like to call character development done right, unlike other shows out there that are on right now that are not. This was an enjoyable hour of television for me. I can't say that for all the shows I've watched this past several days.
No, we're not pointing fingers, at least on air.
Nope. But we are saying we still really like Better Call Saul. So
yes. Excellent show. I'm so glad it is finally on our TVs.
Absolutely. So we will be back again at 10:15 next Monday to talk Hero. And Saul said he's no hero in this episode, so it'll be interesting to see who the hero is. But we'll be doing Hero. As always, tweet Mel or I, comment in the Hangout, send smoke signals, do whatever you can. Anything we can do to make this better, more enjoyable. One of our main goals in all this is we want interaction. So we appreciate the folks tonight that we're interacting, because that's kind of the point. Mel and I love talking about this, but it's 10 times more enjoyable when we can kind of connect with some other folks and hear some of their thoughts as well. So thanks for everybody on Twitter that was joining in. Please keep that up. Tell your friends. There's a Facebook group now for Saul and Battery. You can share that link out. That we'll put the show information in there. So we're just going to keep trying to get more people catching the show. So thanks for the folks that joined us tonight. And we'll be back in a week.
Yeah. And even if you're not watching us live and you're watching this later on YouTube, still hit us up with any comments or questions, or especially your guesses for the game.
Yep, yeah. If you got guesses for the game, throw them in the comments on the YouTube video, or just tweet them out to Mel and I, and we will keep track, and we'll put our crack staff on determining what the fabulous prize is. Which I don't know how much time we're going to have before they release the titles for episodes 6 through 10. So no limit. You can make as many guesses as you want. So continue to do that, and we'll keep people posted on that. And I think with that, we're gonna call it a day. Mel, got anything else?
Nope. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, everybody.